to the Quikstart podcast. Today is September 4th, 2020, and I am joined by Mark Bartz. How's it going, Mark?
Good, thank you.
So, Mark has actually been in this industry for over 20 years. He helps people land the right role in medical sales careers. He's been featured in tons of different publications. You got CNN Money, Kennedy Information, Career Thought Leaders, HealthcareReps.com, TheLadders.com, ExecutiveResumes.com. I mean, the list goes on and on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark, and a little bit about your background, if you would.
Yeah, we started back in 1997 out in Southern California as a specialized resume writing service, and little did I know at that time that Orange County, where I was, is in fact the medical device making capital of the entire world. And as time went by, we began to realize that people, they need more than a resume to get to achieve their goal, and their goal is to find the right role in medical sales. And we started to realize that encompasses a number of different products and services. And so we retained our specialization within medical device, biotech, and pharma, but we now have expanded quite a bit into other services beyond simply resume writing in order for people to find the right role and quickly. So
exactly. And the two topics that we want to discuss today are having an inside contact and landing the right role. Mm-hmm. Generally, with these podcasts, we're picking a few general topics and just kind of running with it. So thank you, everyone, for being with us here today. Now, as far as the first thing we want to discuss, landing the right role, because this is kind of an issue I think a lot of people struggle with.
Right.
I know when making the transition in my career, it was very difficult for me because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that there was other possibilities out there, but it really took exploring and kind of going outside my comfort zone to really zoning in on what it is that I, personally wanted to do. And I think a lot of people do struggle with that because they're stuck in the same routine. They're used to one particular field, and they're like, oh, all right, well, I'll try to find another position in that field, or I'll try to do that again. But it doesn't always work out, and they're not. It's almost like a form of complacency because it's something that you're familiar with, it's something that you're comfortable with, and I think people need to sort of have a reality check at times and be like, well, maybe I should look at something different. Maybe there's something out there that I didn't even know about that's specifically what that's what I want to do, and you don't actually know that until you kind of start peeking through those unopened doors or unopened opportunities. And that's the big thing about having a mentor and having somebody kind of guide you through the process is it does sort of open you up to new possibilities.
Yeah, and change is hard too. I mean, you're talking about the unknown, and there's Stephen King makes his living off of this, doesn't he? He knows that the scariest thing out there is the unknown. So a lot of people, when they're considering our services, we are kind of bringing them into no man's land, and we're not assuming they want to continue doing what they're doing. Typically, they do want to move off into something else. So we guide them into, well, what does that other area look like? So
what is the first step in finding the right role, in your honest opinion?
Yeah. The first step, and I know this sounds hokey, but it would be the same thing. It's the same thing as a dating service model. It really is. So, and in fact, I admit it. That's basically the model that we have for our business is a dating service model. When you want to go to an online dating service, what is your ultimate goal? It's to find some not perfect, but the right person for you that makes you happy. So that's the metaphor for the job that you find. So how do you do that with an online dating service? You don't rush out on dates. With our service, you don't rush out on interviews. What's the first thing that you do? With the dating services, you fill out this profile before you go on dates, because the profile is going to do two things. It's going to tell you who you are. And it's also going to tell the potential date who you are, so there's no surprises. So with us, we do the equivalent thing, which is I'm pulling you back from the mirror because your nose is on the mirror. You can't see yourself objectively. And once I pull you back from the mirror and start asking you questions, then we're like, okay, then, this is the kind of shoes you should wear, and, this is how you should do your hair and your color of the clothes that you wear, etc. We do the same thing here. We're packaging the person. So that, to answer your question, the key first step in finding the right role is standing back and going, who am I? And really thinking through who you are, because you're not, and this is a key point, you're not the same person you were like 5 years ago, which means you're not going to be happy with the person that you might have dated 5 years ago. You're not going to be happy with the job that you might have landed 5 years ago.
That's a great analogy too. Your nose is on the mirror and I'm pulling you back.
We can't be objective about ourselves. That's just human nature. It's too hard.
Well, kind of to touch on what you said, one of the biggest things I try to tell people is that, most of the time people are searching for a new job online. I mean, that's just what we do nowadays. You don't really go door to door and hand off your resume. You just email it. So if you have all these hiring managers and all these recruiters using online services to vet people, what does that tell you? Well, the landscape has completely changed.
Yeah.
And we needed to sort of reinvent how our clients navigate the job search process, which is one of our famous quotes that we use. But so basically you've developed a program that specifically, and it's for a very niche market too, is medical sales careers.
Right.
You've kind of zoned in on what people need in order to be successful in their job search online. And that goes for, resume, LinkedIn profile, and you have your signature job searching package, which is called NetOut. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, as far as NetOut is concerned, just basics on NetOut, you mean?
Yeah, like just kind of like a general overview.
Yeah, and again, it's the dating model. So, here's probably what everybody does, nearly everybody does, and it's a big mistake. Can you imagine going on dates? This is what I call the George Costanza dating model. And you go on dates and you tell each date what you thought they wanted to hear because you wanted them to like you. But at the end of the day, you weren't being true to yourself. And you're never going to be happy with any of these people that you end up dating because, they didn't know who you really are. And again, you were not being true to yourself. So one of the first things that we do with NetOut, which is our job search program, is we brand you in the form of your, it's actually 4 things. It's your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your interview skills, if you need interview skills, and then what we have is called the Gallup Top 5 Strengths Assessment, which all companies in our wheelhouse from Abbott through Zoll use. So we do the branding, who are you, which is basically packaging you before we head out the door and get you into interviews, which brings us to NetOut. NetOut is our own proprietary job search program. It's dramatically different than anything else out there in that we have, what is of today, 229 what we call trust agents. These are previous customers that used our NetOut service to land the roles that they have. They're all in sales roles and, everywhere from field sales to manager to director to C-suite. And so these trust agents help us help our new clients land jobs at their company. And you might as well think of these trust agents as the new recruiters, because that's in essence what they are. The employee referral programs out there have really just taken over. And what it's done is it's basically made the equivalent of recruiters out of employees. So the employee is going to collect a commission from anywhere from, $2,500 or so. $3,000 tends to be the sweet spot. And then we've heard as high as $4,200. I think that was I can't say the name of the company online, but and and those candidates that come through the employee referral program tend to be the highest quality candidates coming versus any other source. So to get back to NetOut, we're going to be opening doors for you, not just, and this is a key point, not just through our 229 trust agents, but we've actually figured out 5 different ways to make sure you have an inside contact at the company you apply for. NetOut, you're going to find 50% of the jobs are advertised, the other half, 50% obviously, are not. And so what we've done is we've taken all the guesswork out of, well, how do you find those jobs? How do you get the inside contact? How do you ask all the right questions to make sure it's the right company for you? At the end of the day, we've made all those mistakes over, many, many years, so you don't have to. You don't have to guess anything. And then again, here we go. We play the role of mentor, and that means that we're at your side doing your job search, which means, and this is a critical point, there's no failure. You're not going to fail. We're going to cross the finish line with you. In fact, that's what our performance guarantee is.
Awesome. Yeah, and like we covered in our last podcast, episode 1, we definitely covered the unadvertised jobs, and a lot of people don't realize, think about that for a second. It's unadvertised jobs. So the only way that you would know about that position is if you had somebody on the inside that told you about it.
Yep.
So if 50% of that, if you have 50% of that, that means that in order to get into those positions, you literally have to know someone or, get in contact with somebody that knows of that position. So
we do. People probably want to know our demographics behind everything that we're doing. So kind of think of it this way. We've got about 120 people per year that go through here, and here's the question of the day. How many of those people landed a job without an inside contact? Believe it or not, the answer every year is maybe 1, maybe 2 out of 120.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yep.
Well, so what are the biggest mistakes people make in trying to land the right role? I know that a lot of people are in this, especially with COVID hitting, and people don't really know what's going to happen. You have people, losing their positions, businesses closing down. So
yes.
that probably alone is kind of shaking up everyone a little bit and being like, okay, maybe I need to do something else. I know that we've specifically talked to a few people. One in particular, I won't mention his name yet, but we've been talking to a pilot, and he's possibly looking at, other careers just because of the way things in the airlines are going. So what are the biggest mistakes people make in trying to land the right role?
Well, step number 1, and this is anybody who's been out there as long as I have, you talk to anyone who's been out there for 20 plus years, just ask them, what do you see as the biggest mistake people make in job searching, period, right now? And it's always going to be the same answer. Here it is. It's waiting too long. People, they see the writing on the wall and they ignore it and they think it's going to go away. It doesn't go away. So meanwhile, there's a price on your sanity, and you're putting up with a boss who's absolutely horrible. And you don't, what is the amount of stress that's causing you? It's hard to put a price tag on that, but it impacts you, your mental health, your spouse, your family.
Why do you think that happens so often, though? So why?
Because people don't know that we have the tools to get them out of that situation and into a great job, one where they're going to be happy and they're going to be doing things that they have a passion for, and also they're going to be positioned to be moving into longer term stuff that they love doing, that maybe right now they can't claim expertise in that area, but they can be groomed and towards those areas of passion. So at the end of the day, the biggest reason why people don't do this is it's very simple. They don't have someone who's got the relationships to open the doors for them, and the tools, the proprietary tools like we do, and then the mentor role. So we're at their side. We're not giving them a book, giving them a training course and saying, hey, good luck. We're working with them as mentors right now, we're guiding them through the friggin' jungle, basically.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with a lot of fear of the unknown as well. I mean, you go to work, you wake up, you go to work every day, you come home, you spend time with your family, and then the next day, rinse and repeat, right? So it's the fear of the unknown, and I'm sure when people think about getting into a different role, there's a million thoughts that go through their brain, and that usually people automatically jump to all the negative stuff. Well, it could take a long time for me to job, like I don't have the time because I'm working right now and I don't want to go home. And then after working all day and then have to, send out resumes and then I have to take off time to go to interviews and all this other kind of stuff. So there is a lot of things that come with, looking for a new position.
I mean, the world's a tough place, and the world's not going to be nice to you. And what's going to happen with our candidates almost always before they come here is that they've tried this on their own. They've tried to submit 100 plus resumes, and they didn't get an answer. And my God, you're only human. You're going to get demoralized when 100 companies say, "Don't call us, we'll call you." And the devil is in the details when it comes to success. I always tell people, there's an adage here I use quite often, which is no one was born out of the womb as a medical device sales rep. Somebody somewhere gave them a chance, and they came from somewhere. So the reason I bring that adage up is I'd say about 20, maybe 30% of our customers are coming from a big pharma background, and they have been told you can't break into medical devices. And we're like, would you like to talk to a dozen people in your backyard who did? It's a matter of the devil's in the details. You can do it. And so one of the biggest mistakes you're going to make in your job search is telling yourself, no, I can't.
So obviously the transition to that is pretty difficult. Why do they say that?
Well, there's within the medical device arena, and this is in particular at the big OEMs out there, have it's a perception that people coming from pharma, they're coming from pods, and they're not, they don't have, the level of technical acumen and expertise with which to then transition over to medical devices, when in reality, they do. Learning the product itself is the easy part. You really can teach people the product. Being able to develop a specialty call point relationship for years is the key thing that the pharma people have, and you can't buy that. I mean, you can't teach someone how do you quickly transition from quote unquote sales rep to trusted resource with someone he or she's a specialty call point. They're respiratory or CNS or cardiology or oncology. That ability to become a trusted resource and develop a long-term relationship, that's the key thing that all companies are looking for, regardless of the product.
So how many jobs do most people apply to before landing the right role? Let's just say on their own.
Yeah.
If somebody's just like doing a job search on their own, how many jobs do you think that they actually apply to? In your experience with talking with people?
I can only tell you anecdotal, and I'm sure that somewhere out there's some sort of, report on this, but I've never actually seen the answer to that question specific to our wheelhouse. So I would put it to you this way. And I always ask people as we go through the net out process, I always ask them, before coming here, how many jobs were you applying to? And the answer inevitably was over 100, which sounds like a commercial for Prozac, doesn't it? So to answer your question with us, how many jobs would you apply to through our process? Right now, the answer is probably 6 or 7 jobs, and then that's it. Now, little caveat in there, that's if you've got a great looking resume, branded resume, great LinkedIn profile, which is not a copy and paste of the resume. And if you have those two items in play, that's the packaging part of what you're bringing to the table. Then the promotion part is obviously where we go in and actively promote you within our network on NetOut. So we've got 229 trust agents, 16,000 people on our newsletter, 30,000 people on our LinkedIn profile. So that's why we're able to achieve these really low numbers, 5, 6, 7 job applications, and that's it. I'm not saying that you're only going to have 5, 6, or 7 interviews. You might have 2 or 3 per application, but boy, oh man, getting 5, 6, or 7 job apps in versus well over 100, that's definitely the road you want to be on.
But it's a night and day difference, though. Instead of on your own at night, when you come home from sometimes a 12-hour workday, and you're sitting there on your couch, on your laptop, filling out resumes, or filling out job applications, excuse me.
Yep.
And submitting it to over 100. You do maybe 5, 10 a night, right? And you're just kind of crossing your fingers, hoping for a response. It's the flip side of the coin here, where we're actually giving you specific people to talk to open doors at specific companies. So you know exactly what you're kind of shooting for.
Yeah, it's specific people to talk to, and granted, remember that's only one of the 5 ways that we get you
exactly
in inside contact. But again, the devil's in the details when it comes to success, and it's always the little stuff that you don't know, that no one teaches you, that we teach you, we share with you, that make all the difference in the world. So, for example, right now we're tracking about 20% of our candidates going through NetOut are landing jobs through a college alum. Now, here's what makes this really interesting. That college alum, it's almost never anyone that you actually knew before, and it is someone that you probably didn't even go to school with them at the same time. And yet what we've done is we've mastered the ability of how do you get a college alum that you don't know, you didn't go to school with, to get on the phone with you and help you open doors at their company and brief you on what it's really like to work at that company. So what we're doing through our own trial and error for many years is we're in 20 minutes, we're creating from nothing a really strong relationship for you. So the biggest problem people make in job searching, one of the many, is assuming they know how to do that. No, if it's that easy, believe me, you would have mastered it. And so that's what we're doing, is we're teaching you the devil in the details. What questions do you ask them? What's their motivation? How does that conversation sound? How do you close the conversation so that at the end of a 20-minute conversation with some college alum, hey, you got a new buddy. And that's a pretty cool accomplishment, which normally takes people years to develop that level of relationship. You just pulled it off in 20 minutes because of our mentoring of you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got something for you, Mark. You ready for this?
I am indeed.
All right. Credentials plus trust plus timing equals your job search success. Who came up with that?
I think it was me and my business partner, Brian, who started this company back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And we started to put 2 and 2 together and realize that if you take a look at any job search success you've ever had in your life, inevitably you had all 3 of those components. And if you don't mind, if I can kind of walk down the road a little bit on this so I can clarify what those 3 components.
Yeah, because I think it's super important that we tie in the job search success formula, because it really is.
It's real, yeah.
It's powerful, it's something. It's kind of like thinking outside the box a little bit. I know, talking about job searching, you really do have to start thinking outside the box, because the tools and the tactics and whatnot that people have been used to for the last 50 years, it's not the same anymore.
No, they're obsolete. They
and
are
re-
obsolete.
and
Yep.
and how competitive things are getting, college degree or not, with how competitive things are getting these days.
It's pretty bad. And the unemployment rate I just saw went, now it's getting better. It's 8.5% right now. But for these type of roles that are paying, 6 figures, these are extremely competitive markets. So, yeah, with regards to that success formula, think about any job you've ever landed, and I'm gonna walk you through what you had. I guarantee it. You had credentials, trust, and timing. With the credentials, you had to have a decent resume, which probably your credentials were probably predominantly, who did you work for, what did you do, and talk to me about your college credentials in
And let,
your education.
let me just say something on that real quick. I spoke with this was a while back, but
Mm-hmm.
an HR manager was telling me about how many resumes they go through a week. I mean, you're talking thousands.
Yeah, it's insane.
And when you're one of those thousands of people reaching out to try to get a position, and the HR manager sitting there flipping through all of our emails, you don't stand out at all, unless, like, I mean, you do in a sense that they look at your resume and they see something that they like, but I mean, what are the chances?
Very, very small. Yeah,
It's
my
like
wife was in
it's like
HR.
Go
My
ahead,
wife,
sorry.
my wife was an HR director for, gosh, 15 years or so, and it's very difficult to stand out with your resume alone. It's just is not. Yes, it's one of the forms of credentials, but it's not enough
Yep.
in the equation. So I'm sorry I cut you off, Matt.
No. I was. You're good.
Okay.
Please continue with the
So
credentials part.
So credentials, up until not too long ago, your main credential was really your resume, which again articulated your experience and your education. Not enough anymore. What you have now for credentials are, through our process, are really four things. You've got the resume, you've got your LinkedIn profile, you've got your interview skills, which Brian does, and then you've got your Gallup top 5 strengths assessment. So those four things are your new credentials. Do you need all four of them? If your interview skills are great, then no, you don't need that, but you got to have already adequate interview skills. The Gallup assessment in our wheelhouse, if you got 10 plus years experience in particular, yeah, you really should have your Gallup results, because employers put great stock in that form of credential for you. Resume speaks for itself. LinkedIn profile speaks for itself. So those are your four credentials. You've got to have all four of them at a decent level. Trust. I think today, if you don't have an inside contact, it doesn't matter what your credentials are. I know that sounds like blasphemy, but I swear to God, it's true. It's, the best qualified person doesn't land the job. It's the best prepared person who lands the job. And that's the person that has all three elements of this job search success formula. So trust is an inside contact at that company who basically can say, yeah, you need to talk to this guy, give him a shot at this opportunity. And then the timing element of this, in the past, the timing was pretty straightforward. It's basically, look, they're hiring because we can see an ad online, so the timing's obviously perfect. They're hiring, great, we're in there. Today, though, that's all changed, because you now have 50% of the market being the unadvertised job market. So now timing is really the last element of the job search success formula, for good reason, and that is that it's like the final component that you have to master in order to land the role you want. And timing, again, falls into two categories: advertised market, unadvertised market. If it's the advertised market, there it is. There's a job posting online. If it's an unadvertised opportunity, guess what it is? I can almost guarantee you it is a vacated role, and the role has been vacated in the last, I would say, up to maybe 60 days. and the company hasn't done anything to fill the role, and it's just sitting there. And so really, for us, with the NetOut program in particular, we can create perfect timing for vacated roles in the unadvertised job market. We really mastered that whole process where now it just becomes a statistical reality. If you do this process, you are going to get into an interview for a vacated role in the unadvertised job market. So now you have all three of the things that you need: credentials, trust, and timing. That's what we're selling here. And then we back it up as a mentor where we cross the finish line together.
So how many people do you think are actually happy at the position that they're at?
Oh man, I don't know, but because you got to realize that the people calling me are not happy. Obviously, but, so it's kind of funny. It's like the dating model, isn't it? It's kind of like, Mark, I really would like a new date, so I'm not happy with the one I have, or I don't have one at all. And that's kind of the same analogy here.
All right, let's talk.
Have you seen stats? I mean, it's got to be pretty high.
I mean, I think common sense would say, I'm sure, like at least half of people that are working where they're at, they're not happy in all aspects of life, like or in any field you think of. Maybe not, but I think that there's a lot of complacency out there. I think people kind of just a lot of people kind of fall into the trap of going to the first thing that comes up. It seems like a good opportunity, and they're kind of just stuck.
So think about that, Matt. What you just said is the equivalent of someone's not really happy, they're alone, and here's our dating service model. So they get them into a date, and now they're dating someone that they kind of like.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so they kind of
really. Yep. Not really.
They're always looking for that next best thing. Yeah, they're always looking for that next best thing, huh?
So,
or it kind of reminds me of my ex-girlfriend.
Oh God, don't go. This PG, man.
Well, let's talk about having an inside contact.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about how important it is to have one. Pretty much when it comes to job searching, you have two options, and I never really actually thought about this in this way. You have the unadvertised roles, and you have the advertised roles. Before I started doing this kind of work, I never honestly thought of it that way. I didn't think that there was unadvertised roles. So you have the first option, which is advertised, whereas you find a position, you apply for it just like the other hundreds or thousands of people that are applying for that position, and cross your fingers hoping to get recognized. Right. Or you have the unadvertised roles, which you have to generally know somebody that tells you about the opportunity, or you have to have some sort of inside contact to know about the position and apply for it, which greatly increases your chances of getting that position automatically. Because it immediately cuts out 99.9% of the competition. So maybe you have one or two other people that you're competing with, and so your chances are better. So obviously, the smart way of doing, especially for those good, solid positions that you want, the positions that you really want are the unadvertised roles that you had the inside contact. 50% of all positions are filled through employee referrals. So this is kind of where things are trending. And that is the reality that we all kind of have to recognize. And so given that we give you the tools and information that you need to be successful in this type of job search, what are common ways? What are some common ways right off the bat that you can think of to get an inside contact?
Yeah, to get an inside contact. God, while you were saying this, Matt, I just had this funny analogy, and I realized, wow, this is really going to hit home with people. So going back to the dating model, which is so perfect for what we do, here's your two options, okay?
Okay.
Option A, got option B. Option A, let's say you wanted to go find a date, and you decided, I'm going to do old school. And this is what your peers do. They're doing when they go online, they apply to all these jobs, and they hope for the best. They're doing the equivalent of the following: going to a bar, sitting down, and waiting to see who walks up to you. It's way too passive. and you're going to have, nut jobs or us approaching you, and you're going to waste a lot of time. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
That is exactly the analogy of what all the other services out there offer. Here's what ours looks like. Night and day different. Now you go to a nice restaurant. You go there to meet a group of friends that you've known for a long time, and they introduce you to someone that they really vetted for you because they've known that person for a long time.
Yep.
So, which do you want? Option A, option B. We do option B. We set the whole thing up for you.
That's great.
Through people that are already within your network. So to answer your question, one of the ways that we get people into the unadvertised job market, besides our little army of trust agents, one of the tools that we have within NetOut is called the 12-5 report. Let's go down the road on this because I think the audience is really going to like this. So you need an inside contact. You're in a job search, and one of the first things I'm going to ask you is, okay, if you were doing things old school and you were in a job search, one of the first things you would do is you would get on the phone and you would talk to the 5 people that you've known forever that are out there that you trust, and that you could say to them, hey, I'm in a job search mode. I'm looking for something within, respiratory asthma, CNS. Please keep your ears and eyes open for me. Now those 5 individuals that you're talking to are probably previous colleagues you used to work with. Inevitably, they're already within our wheelhouse. But again, old school, hey, keep your ears and eyes open for me. We did a new twist on that concept with our 12-5 tool, which is part of NetOut. Here's how it works. When you close that conversation with those 5 people and you've told them, hey, I'm in a job search, keep your ears and eyes open for me. You and I both know, Matt, people get busy. Life is filled with distractions. They're probably going to forget about us. So what we do when we close that conversation with those 5 people is this. We tell them, if I happen to find someone within your network who is working at a company that I may be targeting, I may be doing research on, can I circle back to you with the name of that person to get your permission to reach out to them and ask them for an informational interview for that particular company? And of course, your 5 allies or colleagues or whatever you want to call them are all going to say, yeah, why not? And what happens next is you put together a list of about, let's say, 12 companies you want to go to work for, anything from Abbott through Zoll, and you go into LinkedIn and you can actually go into the network of each of those 5 colleagues of yours, and you can plug in the 12 companies that you want to go to work for, and you can pull up their connections of people that are working for those companies that are already in their network. And what you do then is you circle back to your colleague. Let's just say the first one's name is Jane, and you'd say, hey, Jane, I found these 3 or 4 or 5 folks that are in your network that work for, GSK, Amgen, Covidien, or whatever is on your list. I'd like to talk to them. I'd like to conduct an informational interview with them. Is it okay for me to name drop? Can I basically say that you referred me to them? There's obviously a lot of granular details on how to pull this off, but look, at the end of the day, you now have, with a 20-minute phone call to these individuals, you now have created a really strong inside contact at one of the companies you're aiming for.
So I'm sure you get this a lot, okay? And I know there's people out there that are in this particular situation. So say their LinkedIn profile isn't up to par.
Yeah.
Don't have a lot of connections. They don't have a college alumni. Say they're just basically not really an online guru. They don't really do a lot of online stuff. They're kind of just, they've been at their position that they've had for say 15 years. They never really they thought it was going to be the end all be all. and it turned out it wasn't. They got laid off, whatever. So what do they do? Like, what do they have to do to get those inside contacts? So obviously with the service, you'll hold their hand and basically help them do that.
Yeah, well, with us, you got to realize we're showing up with a little army of inside contacts for them. So immediately, their quality and quantity of contacts just went through the stratosphere just with our.
Yeah, so they get that right off the bat. They get those inside contacts right off the bat. So they already got an established network of people who are vetted in high positions, or solid positions at over 200 plus companies, right? Is it 200 plus?
Yeah.
How many companies is it?
Total number of companies, oh man, I know we got 229 trust agents, but it probably represents about 260
Gotcha.
companies altogether. I'm sorry, let me, I did that backwards. So I got 229 trust agents, but they represent about 200 companies, meaning we've got multiple trust agents at some of those companies, like a bigger one like Abbott or something. I might have 3 or 4 trust agents. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you were asking, and I had brought it up earlier, how do they establish this little army of trust agents, without going too far into the weeds. Again, we have 5 different ways to do that. We just mentioned one, which is the 12-5 concept. Mm-hmm. And the other is our trust agents. And then the third, though, is they're college alum. That's actually one of the first things we do on NetOut is we go in and then we help them to quickly connect with as many of their college alum as possible who are within the markets that they're aiming for. And our 4 markets are med device, biotech, pharma, and then hospital and healthcare. And, beef up. We do an audit when we first start this NetOut process. How many college alumni do you have that are out there within those 4 industries? The reason, again, that we do this audit is, hey, if you knew 20%, you got a 20% chance of landing a job through a college alum you never met, it's a hell of a motivator to get out there and really beef that up.
Mm-hmm. So what sort of advice do you have for people who are really struggling with this whole pandemic? I know it's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some people are comfortable, but others not so much. And we really don't know what's going to happen. But one thing is for sure is that things are sort of starting to pick back up, it seems like, and positions are opening. Yeah. So that's definitely some positive, some positive.
Yeah, my advice for people, and this is actually the thing that we cover in the first day in our NetOut program. We actually have 4 formal meetings and then ongoing support until they land a role. But in the very first meeting, I tell them, look, your 2 biggest enemies in your job search, COVID or not, one's going to be discouragement, and then the other is going to be distraction. And so to answer your question with regards to discouragement, I explain to people up front, I'm transparent. I'm going to tell them, here's where our candidates are landing interviews. Things are definitely turning around now. We see that companies have decided, they can't sit there and do nothing and bleed their cash reserves. They have to get out and, safely start moving forward with their business. So things are definitely looking up. I know we've got vaccines that are ready to be signed off on worldwide. So that'll be interesting to see what the results of that is. Mm-hmm. But look, at the end of the day, it's like, I know it sounds hokey, but every cloud has a silver lining. We don't know what the silver lining is going to be through COVID, but I can guarantee you it's going to open up niche new markets where there's going to be growing need for products and services specific to those markets. At the same time, it's going to dry up other markets that perhaps were more traditional and have been out there for a long, long time.
Yeah, the great exodus is happening, man. 500,000 people moving from New York already.
Kidding.
It's crazy.
1,000,000?
I think a lot more people. Well, yeah, because what's happening is these companies that are, they're their business through those big skyscrapers in New York.
Oh,
Now they're realizing that people are pretty much, as far as productivity is concerned, they are just almost the same as just as productive working from home.
oh, virtual office. Yeah, this is really fascinating. We should go down this road a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's do
So
it.
here's the bottom line. These employers know that the greatest asset they have isn't even the product that they have. It's this inspired, high morale sales team. Low turnover, high morale. This is, how do you get that? How do you get those elite teams? We know where they are. We know how to find them. We know how to get people onto those teams. But I think at the end of the day, this whole thing with COVID creating virtual offices and companies waking up and realize, oh, if I grab a calculator and I figure out how much a cubicle costs to, pay for over the course of the year versus this person working out of their home office, it's starting to make a lot more sense. We now have been forced to do something that in the past we were too afraid to do, which is, can we measure productivity through a virtual office? And the answer, surprisingly, is yeah.
Yep.
And what I'm hearing is that these people that are overwhelmingly, the people that have virtual offices are happy. They have a true life-work balance now where they're able to get things done around the house. You think about it, nothing's a bigger waste of time in life than being on the freeway commuting to work and then commuting back home at night. That's absolutely dead time.
In some cases, it takes up 2 hours of your day, an hour there, an hour back.
Yeah,
when I was living in Phoenix, it took me 45 minutes. When I actually used to work for GoDaddy in Scottsdale, yeah, and it took me 45 minutes, almost an hour, 50 minutes sometimes, depending on traffic, just to get to work. That's 2 hours of your day.
No, it's a complete waste of time.
Of course, it's a great way to listen to podcasts like ours, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's challenging, and I think we're going to see a very big shift with the amount of people that actually work from home.
And they like it. Who knew? Everybody was concerned, these people are going to be slackers, and it's like, it's the opposite problem. And you ask this of anyone who runs their own business out of their house, they're going to do the same. They'll tell you the same thing. If you have a virtual office, you're doing your business out of your house, like so many people are today. One of the things that they'll tell you is the biggest challenge for me is not being a slacker or being lazy or not being disciplined. The biggest problem for me is to turn off the freaking light at night and walk out of the office.
Because you just want to keep going.
You want to keep going. You want to do one more thing.
Yep. Yeah. Once you get into the routine of it and the flow, it definitely comes natural. It's a little daunting at first because you're like, oh man, what do I do? Where do I start? But once you get going, it's like you want to keep doing what you love, and that's primarily what we encourage people as far as landing the right role. We want people to ultimately do what they love, and potentially.
And that's changing, yeah. And that's changing, and they need to recognize that they're not the same person. So what it is they love doing, we need to articulate in a way that oftentimes the client can't, because obviously, as I said, their nose is on the mirror. But we really need to talk about two things as far as passion is concerned. One is, what do you love to do? What does that look like?
Well, I think kind of going back to what we were discussing earlier, though, is I think a lot of people don't know.
No, they don't.
They're used to doing what they've been doing, and they don't really know what's out there. And it really does take a certain level of drive to go out there and kind of explore what it is that you could potentially do.
Yeah, so we come in with a 10,000-foot vision, and we're like, hey, we've done this with hundreds of clients that are just like you. They're classically our demographic, and this isn't politically correct, but our demographic predominantly are people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And if they haven't had a job search in forever, they have this very limited scope of examples around them of someone moving from where they are now into something completely different. We don't have that limited scope. We have the 10,000-foot overview of, okay, we get 120 people through here each year. We know how to help you figure out what it is you love doing and then help you get there with the least amount of time and effort. So,
Exactly. So just to kind of wrap things up, any final thoughts you'd like to give on having an inside contact and the importance of that?
No, I would just say to people that, that there's a lot of bad information out there, and people are often armed with just enough information to make them dangerous. And, like anything in life, the devil's in the details, and it's typically on a granular level. So with regards to having an inside contact, that's really where we come in and help you not just find that contact, but to develop that contact in a way that we know is effective, so you don't have to wing it or guess on it or burn out or jeopardize a potentially really good trust agent.
Awesome stuff, man. All right. Well, any final thoughts on? I know a lot of people are obviously struggling right now and kind of in the transition mode, but we do have options for you if you are looking to, get our services. Do you want to discuss that real quick?
Yeah, don't sell yourself short. Obviously our services cost money. We have everything from a $595 package up to, I think our highest package is around $2,500 now, and a la carte products as well. If you want to make a difference in your life, in your career, these are the things that you don't want. You absolutely need to have some combination of these things. And bear in mind also our unique value proposition, which is there's not going to be any failure. We're going to cross the finish line with you. And then secondly, we do have the little small army, the network of, you might as well think of them as mini recruiters, that are working at these companies. They're going to open doors for you, brief you on the company. And then I think lastly, just bear in mind our specialization. We don't know jack about anything outside of our little world of expertise, which is med device, biotech, or pharma sales. So we're kind of like a Porsche 911 mechanic that only works on Porsche 911s from the year 2015 forward. That's how specialized we are. But if you fall within that category, there is absolutely no one on the planet better versed to help you than us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark, for joining me today, and thank you, everybody. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and thanks again, Mark.
Hey, nice. You too. It's 3-day weekend. I keep forgetting. So have a good one.
Is it Memorial? What is it? Labor Day? Memorial Day?
Labor Day.
Labor Day. That's right. I always get.
You and I should stop working right now and get into the Labor Day weekend.
Oh, jeez. Well, you have a wonderful weekend too, Mark, and I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.